Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today by request from my dude Trev, the shipping guru. His information is going to be down below. Please check out Trev. I love Trev. He's one of my guilty pleasures. But he did request a book that is also one of my guilty pleasures. But we're going to be talking about Image Comics Plush issue number 4. It is written by Wagner, art by Daniel Hillyard, colors by Rico, Renzi, letters by Ed Dukeshire, and I went with cover B, which is a Tony Fleecs, however you pronounce his name. No disrespect, I'm just bad with names, but I think it's Tony Fleecs. But my dude Trev asked me to do this review. It's in my review pile. I was planning on doing it, but I love when someone else asks me to do a review. Means, you know, we're excited to talk about the book, right? Hopefully. But this is a weird book. I'm not going to do a catch you up or whatever. If you'd like to, if you're not caught up on the series, I've done a review on each individual issue. They're in my playlist, or, you know. So if you're so inclined, go check out that. So let's get into this review. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on my channel. It does help. I'm getting closer to 500. I will announce something as we get past that mark. So without further ado, so we are back in the Furry Mansion is what I'm going to call it. I don't know if we have an actual name for the mansion that they're in. It's like the hideout of our furry collected cannibal crew. And they're basically over here and they're talking about a new term, and it's called a fursona. A fursona is kind of like, and it's kind of how it sounds, a persona with fur, right? But it's our main guy Devin, and he's actually talking about how they choose the furries, like costumes that they chose to represent them, and it's the girl Eddie, and I think that's how you pronounce it, Eddie or Edda, but she's basically like, you know, like it comes to you, you know, it doesn't really like you pick it kind of thing. There is a moment when, but we learned something about Edda's father, and he's basically the owner of the house. But Devin says something like quick about the father, and it ends up making Eddie cry. She ends up leaving. Bo kind of makes a crack about how he's like, oh, ruined it there, you know. We quickly find out that, because Bo mentions that they're like all brother and sisters, and it's kind of one of those things where they were rescued, kind of like kidnapped, rescued, and it even comes up in a term like that. But that's kind of how they see each other as brother and sister, and then their father is the one that like kidnapped them, rescued them, or whatever. And now they're this cannibal furry, like, I don't know, family. I don't know, it's weird. Okay, it's weird. So anyways, there's more conversation between like Devin and Bo, and basically them understanding like that they're not really brother and sister, that they're just, you know, it's the term that they're using. As they're going around, Devin keeps focusing on this one Furry Mask because technically he hasn't chosen his. The question does come up of how he chose this costume that he's in presently, because he's in this kind of like bird furry costume, and he basically goes back to the first issue and him saying that his roommate talked him into going to that Comic-Con or whatever, and he just made him pick a furry costume. It wasn't anything that he chose. As they're going around, like I said, he keeps focusing on this mask, and we do get to see it's like a unicorn kind of punk looking mask, and Bo notices that that's kind of the mask that he keeps leaning towards. The book does come, you know, cut over to the other part of the story, the antagonist, I guess you can say, but it's the sheriff, and he's basically, with the one remaining cop, which you can see here, he has got a whole bunch of like kind of guys around the neighborhood, and he's like, look, I'm going to not really deputize you, but basically we're going to be hunting humans under the protection of the law kind of thing. He's like, that we're not going to be kidnapping, we're not going to be like taking these people hostages, we're out to kill these like furry cannibal kind of things. The book jumps back to Bo and Devin, and they're basically talking about the weapons they choose, and they show a whole bunch of crazy looking weapons, and we find out that's what Bo does, and is like when he's at the mansion in his downtime, he just makes crazy ass weapons. Devin eventually focuses on this, and I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's a Aztec sword, as you can see, kind of closer over here. But I think it's called a malcheca, I think is how you say that type of sword. And it's basically like a stone long sword that's like this with ridges. They used it to bludgeon and kind of swipe. But he focuses on that, and he like mentions that that it looked like he had made it, and he was like, no, this was our dad's, this was his weapon of choice. You know, we all have that one thing that like ties us to this world. It might be something small, something big, but the conversation goes into like how each individual, they do have an item that's something special to them that represents something. The book goes outside, and it's this moment with Etta, I don't know how to pronounce her name, and Devin. And they're basically, it's that moment that we kind of saw in the first issue that Bo kind of glimpsed, but it's that true romance, you know, like, and it kind of comes out. There is a conversation about how Devin does have an item, and it's his grandmother's ring, and it's not because it's her ring, it's what she symbolized, like everything. The whole, like, what matrimony represented, what she represented as a person, stuff like that. Etta kind of reveals that she has an item that she was given by her father, and then after the father's passing, because now he's dead, it means that much more. And she has a moment where she stated that after he died, it kind of like, it didn't mean so much, but then she kind of realized that it did. As they're sitting here having this kind of romantic conversation, it's a lot of imagery from outside the mansion. It's kind of the first time we've gotten to see it. But they had mentioned this before, that the owner of the house had built this the amusement park for like the woman he loved. It was a tie back to vinyl. But we do get to see that, you know, they're out here like kind of like in one of the amusements, and we don't get to see it until later on, like the full picture. But there is conversation about, hey, are the lights like working on their own? And we do see that Bo and Keeves are over here, and they're kind of controlling the lights and stuff, and they do have stuff lined up saying creepy and romantic, and currently they're working the romantic lights. But we do finally get to see the actual amusement park that this guy built for his wife while she was staying in this massive mansion, which I thought was really cool. But with them using the amusement park and the lights, guess what? It alerted the sheriffs, because they're looking for them, you know, and now they kind of have a location. They actually catch the moment that Bo and Eden actually connect, that true romance moment that Devin was hoping for, using the whole romantic line. It actually this whole issue, like at some points, reminds me of a whole Saturday morning cartoon. You know, people like, you know, with Devin in the back, or well, Bo in the background trying to, you know, control the situation, kind of like Sebastian and the Little Mermaid kind of thing. We do see the sheriff, and he is kind of pissed because he is seeing that, you know, it looks like Devin and Ida are having a romantic moment, and the sheriff wants Devin to marry his daughter for some weird reason that we don't know yet. But eventually Ida falls asleep. Devin kind of, all of a sudden sees lights, and of course, it's just like I mentioned, it's the sheriff, and he's kind of, you know, telling Devin to come over. And we do see that Devin goes over, and after he goes over, he does drop a ring after he's talking to the sheriff, basically stating that, you know, he's leaving all that behind. But he does state to the sheriff that he's going to make a deal with them as long as they will not kill the furries and just leave them alone, that Devin will agree to marry his daughter for whatever reasons, but the furries are off limits, that they're supposed to be forgotten or whatever. The sheriff does agree to the terms, and Devin gets in the car with them and drives away. And as they drive away, we see that badass Keeves is in the background, and she, you know, walks over and picks up the ring that you know, Devin just dropped, while holding a like weird arrowhead spearhead, like she was hunting the cops. But that's where this issue leaves off. There's also something else I mentioned, that like it's kind of quick, but Bo had mentioned that the reason he picked his costume was because he liked the goat. It comes up like that, you know, he looks like Satan or whatever, and it's not that he picked it because it looked like Satan. He doesn't see that comparison. He picked it as a goat, and he even calls it Scratch because it's itchy while he's inside inside the costume. There is some covers for, you know, some cover reveals for the next issue. Of course, no, you know, no information or anything like that. But I guess you can gather that something's coming. We got a picture of the sheriff and all the furry heads. But that's kind of, I think, the cover I'm going for. Hey, but that's my review for the 4th issue of Plush. My final thought, this book's fantastic. Like I said, it reads almost like a weird Saturday morning cartoon mixed with like an adult vibe. I mean, it's definitely bloody and on some weird, you know, notes. But hey, I mean, you kind of know it going into this book. But Trev does my review. I have the other one coming soon. Please give Trev a like, a comment, you know, let him know the Evil sent you know. And if you made it through to this part of the review, hey, let me know what you thought about this book. You know, did you like it? Are you still reading it? I know a lot of people started it and they kind of got weirded out and left it behind. What are you thinking about it? Alright guys, I'll let you go. Alright,